Hey, good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that's very important. I think it's very needful for all of us to understand that we all have to go through and deal with this on a daily basis. Many of us have dealt with this topic there. I'm just going to talk about very briefly. It's going to be a very short video. And in case you don't know who I am, this is Shon, I'm the host of ImDealingWith broadcast, in which we're just going to be talking about something real quick, and it's dealing with trust. Yes, trust. And it's one of those things where you sometimes have to find out, how do I get the trust back? How do I move on? How do I rebuild it? So that's what we're going to talk about real quick, is rebuilding trust. And one of the questions we're going to ask is, how do we do it? I know that's a question that many of you will ask, how do I rebuild that trust? The other question we might be is, where do I start? Because it's very important that when you're trying to rebuild trust, you have to start, because you have to start somewhere. The next thing is, where do we start? You have to know the location of where to start. Maybe with your mother, father, your sister, your brother, maybe that friend on the job, maybe that supervisor, that manager, maybe your husband or your wife, that girlfriend, that boyfriend, maybe your son or daughter. And we have to figure out, where do I start? Then some of you might even ask, is it even necessary? Is it even necessary to rebuild that trust? It's very necessary. It's necessary to rebuild it. It's necessary to have a conversation. It's necessary to be vulnerable. It's necessary to get out of that comfort zone, to get out of that box and try to reach in order to get an understanding. So you don't always have to agree, and every person has the ability to have a feeling, and you have to honor that person's feeling. You don't have to agree with the feeling. But the point is, when there is a community of understanding, when there's a community of knowledge, where you've talked to each other and there's mutual understanding, then there's nothing broken in that process. Maybe you may walk away to agree to disagree, but it is important to start. The next question you might be asking yourself, well, what is required of me? Or is it required of me? There are quite a few things that may be required of you, and we'll talk about that. The other thing is, you may ask yourself, well, how do I deal maybe with a person? I want to come out of my comfort zone. I want to deal with this person or persons. How do I deal with a person or persons who don't want to participate in the process? Sad point about this is some people may not want to participate in your process. Some people may not want to hear you. Some people may just want to still be angry, upset, and whatever the case may be. But as long as you've tried to reach out, to try to make amends, to try to make an appeal, to maybe ask for forgiveness, maybe to apologize, and if that person does not even want to participate in the process, then at that point, you've tried to do what you can. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. But the first thing we have to ask ourselves, what is trust? Because some people don't really know what trust really is. What is trust? Point one, let's talk about this point one. You feel committed to the relationship of your friend or family and your partner. You feel committed. You feel committed. That's a trust aspect, right? Point number two, you feel safe and know they'll respect your physical and emotional boundaries. Yeah. How many people do you know that you're trying to keep your trust, but they don't respect your physical and emotional boundaries? That makes a difference. Okay, point number three. You know your friends, family, or partner listens to you when you communicate your needs and feelings. Yeah, that's a thought-provoking statement there, because some people are so busy waiting for you to shut up. Yeah, they do. They're waiting for you to shut up. They really didn't hear what you really said. They didn't listen to your heart. And when you share your heart, you want that person to be able to feed off of that heart, and they'll relay back to you what they've heard. And sometimes many people don't hear what you said, because they're so focused on either the problem or so focused on trying to figure out, the resolve instead of really hearing your heart. And it's important that when one of the things that when you really trust somebody, when you speak, they hear your heart and they cherish it. And some people, they hear you, but they don't cherish your heart, and they trample on something that should be protected, right? And many of us, we want to be protected when we're sharing our heart. Anyway, let's move right on. Your friend's panel listens to you when you communicate your needs and feelings. I think I just said it right. Your needs and feelings. I think we already talked about that. You don't feel the need to hide things from them. When you're really in a trusting relationship, and I mean not the partner relationship, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, but also with your family, your friends, your loved ones, maybe your mom and dad, your brother and sister, cousins, things of that sort. You don't feel the need to hide anything because there's trust there. How many of you can't tell things about yourself to some of the individuals, maybe to family, sometimes maybe in your partner, because maybe there is some trust issue there, because you're worried about maybe what's going to be said. Maybe you're worried about the feeling, you're worried about the reaction. But when you have a great trusting relationship, you know that when you share, you know that your heart is going to be protected, because you don't have to hide anything anymore, because you know that when you share, it's going to be protected. Yeah, so you don't feel the need to hide. Okay, the next point. You and your family, or friend, or partner respect each other. Whoa, that is a big one. You actually respect each other. You don't have to agree, but you respect the feeling. You respect the discussion. You respect each other's time. You respect each other's integrity. You respect their relationship, especially if they're in their marital relationship or in their boyfriend-girlfriend type relationship. You respect their relationships with their children. Now, if you're in that type of relationship where certain things are not respected, then you have to question that trust factor. Because when you really know you have trust, you know there's a respect there. There's a respect to you, and there's a respect that you're giving to them as well. So it goes both ways. You can't have, you want all the trust, but then you give none either. Okay, but when you're trusting, that means it's both ways, right? You can be comfortable and vulnerable together. So that no matter who that person is in your life, mother, father, sister, brother, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, you are comfortable being vulnerable. Ask yourself this question. Whoever you socialize with, whoever you talk to, are you comfortable being vulnerable? Are you comfortable with sharing your heart? Are you comfortable with telling your truths and being vulnerable and say, hey, I'm struggling in this area. I'm struggling with addiction. I'm struggling with alcoholism. I'm struggling in my separation. I'm struggling in my divorce. I'm struggling being single. I'm struggling not having children. Or I'm struggling in a relationship with my children or my family or with my parents. I'm struggling on the job. I'm struggling trying to get a job. I'm struggling, being alone. Can you really be vulnerable and be honest with those that you're talking to, and then know that your heart is going to be cherished? Because when you know your heart can be cherished, that's a beautiful thing. That way you can have communion. And then on top of that, they're not always so quick to offer this little padded response, to where they can sit down and say, I hear what you said, so let's just sit down and talk about it. Let's deal with point one. Is there somebody like that you can talk to in your life? Because that's when you know that there is some trust there. Last but not least, you support each other without wavering. whoa, this is a big one. Because a lot of people, they'll support you to a point depending upon where you are. Sometimes they support you when you have money. They support you when you have a home. They support you when you have your own car. They're behind you 100%. But sometimes when you go, when you lose things, when you lose relationships, maybe you lose your jobs, you're going through a separation process, you're going through family issues, maybe with your children, maybe with your parents, maybe with extended, family, maybe in the job process. Maybe you've lost some things in your life, maybe lost investments. And many of us, we know in 2020, have lost many things. But will some people support you? And I'm not talking about necessarily financially. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, they're there to somebody you can cry on. Somebody that's there to call on, just to check up on you. They're not trying to get the tea, but they really care about your well-being. They really care about you and your family. They care about whether or not you're on the verge of committing suicide. They really care about, whether or not you have an addiction or not. They really care about your healing. They care about your rebuilding. They care about maybe your spiritual mentality, or where you're at spiritually. Is there someone in your life that you can share with without wavering? Those are the attributes of trust. And if you stay tuned, we're going to talk about how to get all that trust back if you've lost any of that, or maybe you've messed it up. And Lord knows, many of us have messed up some trust. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.